So a couple of weeks ago, we took a look at a broken system that we put together for about $200. And broken is in I ordered a broken Optiplex, which I thought I knew the solution to fixing. We were able to get a couple of parts, put some things into it, and came in right around $200. But for a complete setup for everything, keyboard, mouse, monitor, everything, $200 Optiplex. Yeah, so we're up and going there. Does it work? Yeah, doesn't do too bad. Before that, we took a look at a $300 build, another budget build that we built ourselves from different components from scratch. Separate case, separate motherboard, separate CPU, none of which, neither the case, the motherboard or anything like that, power supply, any of those things were tied to an SI or somebody like Dell or HP or somebody, a system integrator or somebody that sells pre-made computers. Now, all the parts were like off the shelf available. $300 and does pretty well. So if we compare the $200 and the $300, are we getting 1.5 times the performance for the 300? And which one would I go with if I was on a $300 or less budget and really was trying to start something that I might be able to do something with? I don't know. We're going to take a look and see. Now, first, it's not really, I guess, a fair comparison. You're not going to have a great upgrade path with either one of these. You're not, especially not going to have a great upgrade path with the Optiplex that comes in a small form factor. The reason why some of these are available for dirt cheap, and in this case I bought it for $42. The reason why they are so expensive, and some of these other pre-builts they're being unloaded at such a cheap price, is because they're hard to get rid of. They're on their way out. They are third, fourth, maybe fifth generation Intel products. They're older AMD products, A6s, A8s, A10s, or now, if you can find like a 6350 or an 8350, that might be worth it. I don't know. But still, we're running into hardware that's, 10 years old. So you're not going to have a great upgrade path with either one. You're further limited with something like an HP or Dell because only certain things, when they go out, are going to be able to be replaced fairly easily. The motherboard, if it goes out, with the connectors and the way everything is situated in the case, which is another thing, and the power supply, which is different cables, you're kind of limited. And so the best you're going to be able to do is maybe get a little bit more memory, faster SSD instead of an HDD. You might be able to upgrade some CPUs on a similar socket, but even though that 1151 socket will take a better CPU, some of those CPUs are designed differently. This happens to be on DDR3. There's only so many that I believe I can go up to a 7th gen on DDR3. I'll have to double check that, but I think that's the highest I can go on that. If I'm trying to go up higher, like a an 8th gen or anything, it's all on DDR4, which you also can't go backwards. But if you've got a 7th or an 8th gen on DDR4 or 9th gen, you wouldn't want to go backward anyway. The good thing about the $300 build, they're all independent parts. It's an Asus motherboard. I've got a regular power supply in there. I was able to use just standard DDR3 memory. It is a Xeon processor. In this case, it's a 4-core 8-thread that happens to be the same exact size, architecture and everything as the, say, a 4570 or a 4770 or something like that, with 4-core 8-thread. So we're in pretty good shape there. I have a little bit more flexibility. Also, a bigger case because I can use a different case. I'm not tied to a certain area that the power supply has to be in. I'm not tied to something that's already attached in some way or bolted or screwed in or something. I can pick my own parts. So that's a huge advantage. Now, one of the good things about the $200 build is it is a newer processor. It's a 6th generation processor. It's a i5-6500. It is a newer graphics card. It is an RX 6400. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's better than slightly older hardware that maybe is more capable. Now, the 6400 arguably should be better than what the RX 5, you can say a 570 equivalent. It's actually a 580 2048, which for all intents and purposes, is an RX 570, and the drivers support that when I try to use drivers for that. In any case, the RX 6400 and the RX 570, you would think the RX 6400 would have better performance, but then again, it's being held back because of the older architecture. It can't operate as quickly. It's held to the PCIe 3.0 instead of a 4.0 bus, and that limits some things with that newer card. So we are still being limited there. So it might not be as good as it should be. The processor, the 6500, you would think is better because it's newer, but it's 4-core 4-thread, and the Xeon is 4-core 8-thread. So again, maybe the 300 build does have just a little bit better, even though it's an older platform. One of the advantages of the $300 build is the case itself. I can put it in a different case. That means I have more room to put something like a bigger graphics card. Yeah, it works out pretty well. Now, I don't have much room that I can go up as far as the CPU. I'm probably limited to the either more a Xeon that's a little bit faster, or maybe a 4770. In which case, I think the Xeon that I've got in there is probably as good as a 4770 in the first place. I don't have a lot of room to move up there, but that's okay because I do have a chance to move out with the graphics card. I can also, if I decide to change out the platform, still use the same power supply and the same graphics card and the same SSD and all that stuff that's already in there. So we might have an advantage there. But, yeah, as far as that goes, we just have to put them together, plug them up, play them against each other, look at a couple of games, and see which one actually does better, and is the one for $300 1.5 times better than the one for $200? Or if you're on an ultra tight budget like $200, is that $200 a great option? Now, when I did the $200 build, I was asked for a couple other games. I did a quick rundown of a handful of games. I'm not testing 7, 8, 9 games anymore from 1440p or 4K all the way down to 720p low. I don't have the time to be able to do that all the time with a full slate of games, especially because some of the games are difficult to benchmark. The reason why I bring all this up is because somebody had requested Red Dead Redemption 2. Now, that on the surface is a good thing because it's a Vulkan title, Vulkan or DX12, so I can run it on either one of those graphics APIs and see what the difference is. The bad part about that is, first of all, that benchmark takes a very, very long time to run. Second of all, there are no distinct settings for high, medium, or low. It's more like a slider. The third thing is, depending on your drivers that your graphics card is set up on, it might not see the drivers. You might have to go back and reset and try to reinstall drivers so it picks them up. Kind of evidenced by, I think I'm showing something on the screen here that should show a little bit of evidence of that it didn't even pick up the drivers. Along with that, though, is if you say this RX 6400 has 4 gig of memory, 4 gig of VRAM. Now, some things you're not going to be able to max out the settings. But when I go to try to max out some of the graphics settings, it cuts back other settings to fit within that 4. It's not going to say, okay, I'll take the 4 that you've got on board, and I will also try to go ahead and take some of the system memory. It doesn't seem to let you do that. Now, there might be a setting in there to allow you to do that, but I didn't find it when I was doing my testing. So it was only allowing me that 4 gig of VRAM. So when I run these tests later, it's going to look like the $200 system did a lot better than the $300 system, but in actuality, it cut back some other settings when I was trying to do this. So bear that in mind. And I was not able to get an actual high, medium, low. I had to kind of estimate and try to use the same settings that I set up. But of course, on the $200 build, it changed other settings so it could optimize for what I was trying to ask for. So with that out of the way and explaining why I don't normally use a game like Red Dead Redemption 2, let's go ahead and take a look at some of these benchmarks. Shadow of the Tomb Raider. This favored the $300 system, but it wasn't 150% of the $200 system. Still, newer hardware in the $200 system, even though it might be less capable, newer hardware did pretty good. And when you're playing 1080p medium, you're going to be just fine on this either way. Now, the $300 system was a little bit better, and we'll get to one of the reasons why it might be even better than that a little bit later. But for now, $300 system won out but not by a great margin. Borderlands 3. Still, both of them solid. Still 1080p and above. You're going to get better, 60 frames or better, or very, very playable. But this was a little bit closer. It wasn't as clear-cut of a favorite with the $300 build as it was with the $200 build. But both of them did okay. I wasn't complaining about either one. Forza Horizon 5. Now we're getting a little weird here. Okay, because both of them did okay and both of them played all right. I didn't have Forza Horizon. Sometimes is one of those where I have to start from the low setting and go up to the extreme setting, because if I started on the higher setting, sometimes if it really struggles to play it on extreme, it won't quite reset all the way. Like almost like it wants you to restart the game, because the performance will be better the lower resolution you go, but it still does kind of give it some limitations and hang up. So you don't get as good a performance as you would if you just started the game on, say, Ultra or on High or something of that nature. Again, I'm only showing High, Medium, and Low, but I did test Extreme all the way through Low on 1080p. And the results are pretty close to the same. Both of these came out looking pretty close to the same, and actually it was a decent experience. With Cyberpunk 2077, we do see a difference now with the $300 build. Even though it's older parts, they're more capable parts. You've got 4-core 8-thread instead of 4-core 4-thread, and you've got 8 gig on the GPU, 8 gig of VRAM on that 570 instead of the 4 that the 6400 is limited to. So you have more room for those components to stretch their legs a little bit, and it shows here. And this is where we're getting to more where it looks a little bit more like the $300 system is more capable than the $200 system. Still, both of them worked out okay, and they're not medium or low. I think you could play this without much of a problem. You could probably play it all day long on low. All right, so for Counter-Strike 2, I'm putting this in here before I put Red Dead, because we'll go over that in a second. But Counter-Strike, so our esports titles are going to play fine. 80 frames per second for this 1080p high on both of these, I believe it was. They don't have a built-in benchmark right now for CS2, so I had to actually go through live gameplay with a bunch of bots. I wasn't going to try to get online because everything would be a whole lot different. But if I'm on the same map with a bunch of bots, I should be able to get a pretty good idea of how these compare. And this is about where we're getting that 150% or that 50% extra on the $300 build as opposed to $200 build. Again, the $200 build has newer parts, but they're a little bit more limited than the older $300 parts are. And finally, Red Dead. As I was mentioning, part of the reason why this looks weird and this looks out of like the $200 build is much better than the $300. It's not because it's a newer title and the newer hardware handles it better. It's simply because of that limit I was talking about before, where when you go to slide some adjustments or when you go to slide some settings up, it changes other settings to keep you within that 4 gig of VRAM or that whatever you're limited to by whatever it picks up on the card. And that means that when it wasn't seeing any drivers, it wouldn't let me make any adjustments. And when I was trying to run the game, it basically just gave me a generic driver, and it was trying to give me at like 720p, and I was locked at 60 frames per second. I couldn't do anything else. So it would run. It was locked at 60 frames per second. The resolution was 720, and it was some adjustment to it. And basically, it ran a benchmark, but it didn't look very good. It was, I'm not even going to say it was really smooth, but it does a good job of catering to the hardware that you have. But if you're trying to do some kind of test like I am, like a stress test or a comparison test, it makes it a little bit more difficult. The whole reason you have a benchmark is to see how you can stress it out or change the settings or see, what settings work best for you, or if you can, I don't want to say break something, but if you can adjust something past what it's supposed to be. But this kind of breaks things back in line. It says, nope, you're not going to do that. Get back in the box. So that I thought was a little bit unfair, but is understandable. Still, both of these played okay. Once it recognized the drivers on the 6400, it looked pretty good, and it played pretty well. Still, I did, if I was a casual gamer or just starting this game and I didn't know what I was doing, trying to adjust the settings, and I wanted, textures to look better, I wouldn't mind it cutting back my field of vision or cutting back something else or blur or something so that it was able to give me what I asked for in better detail, and it would take something that it thought was less important out. I'm okay with that. Overall, I'm okay with that. I would like a little thing where I could click on it and say, let me override that, but it's not there. So given all these and looking through here, what do I think about these two builds? Well, first of all, it depends on what your budget is. If you've got a little bit more money to spend, the $300 build does give you some more expandability. If I wanted to go ahead and swap, like I said, that platform out and use the same power supply, the same graphics card, the same SSD and all that stuff, I could. If I was trying to do a swap for a platform on that other build, the Optiplex, I'm stuck. Only one type of motherboard is going to fit in that case. The power supply, same thing. I'm limited. I might be able to fit a different Optiplex or a different motherboard into that case, but I'm going to have an issue with the power switch. I'm going to have an issue with the power supply connectors. I'm going to have an issue with, the fan connectors, things of that nature. So I am more limited when I do something like a pre-built than I would be if I'm building this by myself. Now, can I build a $200 build that will keep me underneath and still have the flexibility? I probably can. There's a few things that I can probably change or cut back or adjust a little bit, like if I got a graphics card on AliExpress and paid, say, $60 instead of $90. But there was some flexibility in that $300 build, and I could even make it a little bit cheaper and still be able to work my way up where if I got a better graphics card or I got an SSD with more capacity or I got a better power supply or something that I could upgrade that in the future. So the $200 build is great, especially if you're on an ultra budget. It's not going to give you a whole lot of room to grow. Even though they're newer parts, you're kind of limited. It's not going to give you a whole lot of room to grow. Do I think it's a bad idea to do it? Heck no. It was a great idea. It was a fun experience. I bought something that was broken and managed to be able to find out how to fix it. Should you go out and just buy broken parts and see if they can be fixed? No. Be very careful. Look, see if they post pictures. See if you can identify what the problem might be through those pictures and through that description, and then maybe pull the trigger. It could be worth it, though. If you have an eye for what you're doing and you think you can take care of it and fix it, be prepared, though. In this, it was only going to be about $40, but that's $40 I could have bought a power supply with. That's $40 I could have bought a better video card with, or what have you. So who knows? Anyway, I think this whole comparison was pretty fun, where I built one system for $300 and thought, what can I do cheaper, and found another way to do it even less expensive. Doesn't give me the same flexibility, but it was less expensive. So it was a fun little challenge, and they turned out both performing pretty well. Now, are they going to be on par with my editing rig or my something I use to game and stream on? Absolutely not. Are they going to be a capable computer that I can play games on? Oh yeah, and especially if I'm a casual gamer, or if I like to play esports titles, or even some newer games if I play them on a reasonable setting. Oh yeah, all day long. But either one of these systems, all day long. Worked out pretty well. So am I going to completely quit this? No, because I think I can get a better deal somewhere. I can find something that maybe 200 to 220, and we build something that way in a case that I can upgrade later, or in a platform that I can upgrade later. So that might be the next challenge. So that's coming up. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, don't forget to come join me. That's another thing, too. Don't forget, if the video was helpful at all, found anything at all entertaining about it, you learned something out of it, or you just got an idea, go ahead and throw a thumbs up. I'd appreciate that. Really, really trying hard to get to 1,000 subscribers. Would love to do it by the end of the year, but I got too much going on to be able to put together too many videos before the end of the year, so I'm not going to have a whole lot of these reminders, but that doesn't mean you can't hit that subscribe button. I would certainly appreciate it, and I would love it to death, especially if you're not already subscribed, or say you're watching on your secondary YouTube account or something, or maybe you're watching on a friend's computer and go subscribe on your home computer. That would be awesome. Or on your phone. Yeah, and I'll leave links to all my other socials down, for the Purple Channel and all that stuff too, down in the links below. But if you don't do any of that stuff, just do me one favor, and it's a pretty easy one. It doesn't cost any money, and it's little to no effort, and that's just be good to each other. Be kind. Smile, wave, hold the door open, say good morning, something, anything. You have no idea what kind of impact you might be able to have on somebody else's day just by being kind. And we could use a lot of that right now, couldn't we? That's all I got for right now. So until I get myself into something I got no business getting into, be good to each other, and I'll see you later.